Welcome into episode 246 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. Sources Say is, as always, presented by our good friends at Justice Dental. Stressed about the big game? Take advantage of their special offer for KSR listeners and protect your teeth from clenching and grinding for a limited time. They are offering 20% off bite guards and discounted therapeutic Dysport injections. Click the link in our show notes, like here or there, wherever it's going to be on this video, and to schedule your free consultation. Offer ends April 4th. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very happy to be joined here in person. Look at us, Sean. We're here. We did this for the SEC tournament game where we were just kind of in the hotel, in the couches there. But now this is like live reporting, Sean. First off, how the heck are you?
I am fantastic, Jack Pilgrim, and this is something new. Like, we're going to be like TV official here. Like, look at these mics we're holding. And outside the Coliseum here in Greensboro, the weather's nice, getting a little chilly, but NCAA basketball is in the air. You've already had some upsets throughout the day. Kentucky fans certainly hoping that's not their team tomorrow night. So hopefully we have a lot of good things to talk about today.
So this is not going to be our official pregame show where we dive into what we know about Providence and the ins and outs of the vibe around the team and all that. This was just an opportunity. We got the chance to be in the locker room with the Kentucky basketball team, get the vibe around the team, how they are mentally right now, how loose they are, tight, whatever the case is. Some health updates, some pretty significant ones at that. We got to see a shoot-around for Kentucky. We also got to see a shoot-around with the Providence Friars, which I don't know about you, Sean, but I think it was the best shoot-around I've ever seen in my life. I'm going through my notes. I think it's going to be a name-your-score game for the Providence Friars. Bryce Hopkins looks like he's poised to go for 65 points. Any other notes that I missed from last season where I had to eat crow in the absolute worst way?
I was wondering what your shoot-around prediction was going to be going into this game. I don't think you missed anything. I think you hit it all on the head there, and it was good to be in the building today. Did you notice it's the exact same floor that Kentucky lost to St. Peter's on a year ago?
I did not notice that, and I don't know. Does that bode well, or is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a chance for redemption. The only reason I know it's the exact same floor is because I remember a certain spot on it on the other end, and I went and stood under that basket, and I was like, this is the exact same floor. They just decided to uproot it, bring it to Greensboro, and place it here at the Coliseum, but I have a much better feeling today dating back to how I felt a year ago. I mean, I know that we all were optimistic going into that game against St. Peter's, but I actually, being in that Providence locker room today, being in that Kentucky locker room today, I thought Kentucky looked loose. They had fun during that open practice, and I think that they're ready to kind of get this monkey off their back and start the NCAA tournament.
In John Calipari's call-in radio show, the last press conference that we saw at him, made a point to say it comes from up top, the mindset of the team and the energy and the nerves and how loose or tight we are as a team. It comes from up top. I have to be the tone. I have to set the precedent for the rest of my team. If I'm nervous and I'm tight from up top, then they're going to be. And there's a lot of that, those types of conversations in the locker room during the interview opportunity where they made a very significant point to say, we were tight last year. Like we were not super comfortable going into that matchup, and you could very clearly tell on the court how that all transpired. But it's really good to see that they have made a concerted effort to play as loose as possible. The shoot around, they were dancing. Oscar Sheboy was doing some like
do that again.
Outside of the tire stores where it's like the big inflammable thing. Oscar was doing that. All the players were singing and dancing and rapping and having a good time. That's what you want to see.
But you got to show the Case and Wallace. You got to do it.
I'm a dog. But that's what you want to see, right? Like
they were loose.
They were clearly not that last season, and I think they've gone out of their way above and beyond to stress that, we were stressed last year. We were tight. We were uncomfortable. Let's throw all of that stuff to the side and let's just hoop. We're better than these guys. Let's just go hoop.
Absolutely. And the thing that stood out to me when I'm standing courtside is that Kentucky's got dudes that have been in this tournament. They've got guys that lost to St. Peter's a year ago. Bryce Hopkins didn't play in that game in Indianapolis. Kentucky's, even though it's not tourney success, they know the moment. They know what it takes to play in this tournament. They had that bad taste in their mouth. And let's face it, I was talking to some reporters in here today. That loss to St. Peter's it was only one night, but it's been 365 nights because it's stuck around and it's been over this program's head for a long time. Kentucky wants to escape that, have a good showing on Friday night, have a good weekend down here in Greensboro, and I thought it was encouraging to see that they were having a good time and having some fun. And Cal spoke to the media today at the press conference at the table, at the podium, that he's trying to alleviate that pressure. And he's been trying to do that for weeks now. He wants his team to enjoy the full effect and full atmosphere of the NCAA tournament, and the only way you do that is if you win and go on a run. And he looks like a coach that's confident that his team can do that. You won't be playing your best basketball when this tournament starts. Look at what happened today to Virginia with Furman. You never know. It's the most unpredictable way to crown a national champion or crown champion in all of sports. And if you're playing your best basketball, you got a chance. And I think Kentucky's confident that they're going to be doing that. And it appears that they're going to be at full strength or close to it for the first time in a long time. We got to hear from Sahvir Wheeler today. Definitely the most popular guy in the Kentucky locker room.
I mean, it was an absolute stampede when those doors opened to just go to Sahvir. We haven't talked to him in 6 weeks. I mean, he went down right after the Florida win on February 4th. He twisted his ankle before that home loss to Arkansas, and we have not heard from him since. We haven't talked to him since. And that's a dude that has taken a lot of criticism. He has heard a lot of outside noise. Actually, if you talk to him, he says that he hasn't heard any of it. Do I believe him? I don't, it's impossible for that stuff not to get back to you, but he handled it as well as you possibly could. I thought every one of his answers were unbelievable today. I think he was super mature and said, look, I get it. I know it's not, not a great look, or, there might be some concerns about why I wasn't there on senior day, but make no mistake about it. I love being a Kentucky Wildcat. My passion and love for this team and this program has never phased. I'm here because I want to lead my team to a national championship. I want to be the player that you guys remembered me as way back when we were winning games, and all the excitement surrounding Sahvir and how he was the fun little guy on the team and setting the pace and the change of tempo guy and all the stuff that we loved about him mid-year last year and for the vast majority of his junior campaign here in Lexington. He wants to be remembered as that. He wants to be remembered for the good times, and I think a big part of that is going on a tournament run, and he wants to be a significant part of that. So nothing but credit to him for just embracing that and saying, all right, it is what it is. We're going to move all that outside noise to the past and focus on my availability on the court.
Yeah, he's played in 21 games this season, averaging 7.7 points. And a Bob Cousy Award finalist a year ago who led Kentucky from the beginning to the end and had Kentucky as a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament just a year ago. And but here he is. He's back. He's been able to practice. He talked about leading up to last week in Nashville, he didn't get to have the full week of practice because they had a couple of days off getting ready for the SEC tournament, but they were full go from the beginning of the week this week, and he said that presented a different opportunity to kind of get in there and go full strength and see where he's at. John Calipari did mention that he has to pass one more test, and it's the shoot-around tomorrow. He went through the open practice today, but can he go through the shoot-around tomorrow? Says he doesn't want him, can't be at 80%, not against Providence. He has to be close to 100% to be able to play. Early in the week, I told you that I was kind of hit or miss on whether or not I wanted to see Sahvir play, but after speaking with him today, after being here today, being the vibe in the locker room, kind of asking other guys about the impact of Sahvir, I do think we're going to see him. I'm going to say we're going to see him for 2 spurts. If he plays 7 to 10 minutes tomorrow night, I think it's a big step in the right direction, especially if Kentucky wins, because then maybe you increase that load as you go, because this is a guy that has not played since February 4th, and it's now the biggest moment of the season for Kentucky.
And just as a change of pace, an energy guy, somebody that where we've seen this team struggle down the stretch, the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second, where, they're lethargic at times and kind of settling with shots or defensive possessions or whatever. Sahvir's never going to settle. He is that goes against his grain, who he is, the identity, the DNA, the basketball DNA that he has. That's where his value is going to be. It's not going to be as a 25, 30-minute guy, and Kentucky won't see a run if he becomes a 30-minute guy. He needs to be the 12 to 15-minute change of pace guy. He's going to bring the spark and the energy and make sure that there are no lethargic moments, that there is no, lack of momentum and lack of energy that we have seen this team kind of slip up in those areas. I think that is going to complement all the other things Kentucky has been doing well down the stretch.
His impact tomorrow night needs to be a change of pace and an effort standpoint. I don't know what type of conditioning he's in. I don't know what type of shape he's in right now. I mean, when you haven't played competitive basketball since February 4th when they played Florida at Rupp Arena, it would be a tall task to come in here and ask him to play 20 minutes. I think the disaster scenario tomorrow night is that Kentucky gets in a situation where they're with the ball in Sahvir Wheeler's hands in a crunch situation. He's not played. He's not in rhythm. That's what you don't want. But if you can put him in there, let's say after that under 12 timeout in the first half, and it's just a change of pace, a guy that can pick you up 94 feet, change the pace and the tempo defensively and offensively, can spell Case in a few minutes or play him alongside Case and whatever they choose to do. If you can get that one spurt in the first half and then you get maybe another one early in the second half, then I think that's the ideal scenario for what Sahvir brings to the table tomorrow night. But it gives Kentucky depth. And when you get to this tournament, when you get foul trouble, you don't know what Cason's, what percentage he's at full speed. I know that he wasn't 100% when Kentucky was in Nashville a week ago.
Wearing a leg sleeve around his knee, which is that's a new development.
That is. So just having options. CJ Frederick went through the open practice today as well, was knocking down shots. If you can get a made 3 or 2 from him, I think that's a big step in the right direction. Like, this has to be a collective effort from Kentucky, but roles are already defined. Sahvir's not starting any game in this tournament unless Kentucky's in a dire situation, like if something happens with Kaysen or someone else. He's not starting, so I think roles are set, and I think that this is a guy that's bought into his role. I don't know if you were still standing there today. I think you were beside me when Kyle Tucker asked him about kind of the narrative that's been around since the injury, whether he was ever going to play again in a Kentucky uniform. I don't know if I believe him. I think he's obviously heard the noise and things. I mean, how do these kids not? They're 19, 20, 21 years old. Social media dominates today's world. He did appear hurt by some of those things when he heard it. So I think that this is a kid that wants to give his all for Kentucky. If it's one time or if it's 6 times put on that jersey, I think you're going to get the best from Sahvir Wheeler. And if it's 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 17 minutes, I think he's going to give you everything he's got.
Switching gears a little bit to the other locker room, the other sideline, and just the undeniable storyline that is Bryce Hopkins and the impact that he's going to make on this game and the narrative surrounding him. And I think we got a slip up from the Providence players. Bryce said all the right things and said, it's just another game. Yeah, I'm excited to play my former team. We have our group text going and everything's going well with that. But I think his teammate, I think John Wong asked, how are you guys approaching this and making sure his nerves are okay? What has he told you about his time at Kentucky and how he's preparing for this? And one of his teammates said, I think he feels slighted by how things unfolded at Kentucky, that he wasn't given a fair opportunity in Lexington, and I think he wants to show that. And Bryson didn't say that, and he would never say that publicly. Ed Cooley would never say that. He was talking about his nerves and said we're making sure he's okay, he's good, he's in the right mindset. But what matters is what's being talked about in that locker room and how the pregame hype and his energy leading up to that. And he slipped up. His teammate slipped up by saying that he didn't feel like he got a fair shot at Kentucky. That can either play in his favor by a dude going for 35 points, or it could play in the fact that he could go 4 for 25.
It's true, and it's clearly been said, right? For that to be brought up, that we know the feelings there. We know that Bryce Hopkins felt like he didn't get the opportunity deserved at Kentucky. There was a lot of talk, too. I was in that locker room during that interview. There was a lot of talk about the rivalry kind of tomorrow night between him and Jacob Toppin. And, there's a friendship there. And how Bryce is not the same player that he was a year ago, but guess who else isn't the same player? Jacob Toppin's not. And John Calipari talked about Jacob Toppin a lot. Not just the development from sophomore year to senior year, but the development from the beginning of this senior year to now, and who Jacob is and who Jacob's been in SEC play. I mean, the defender, the rebounder, the improved three-point shooter, just his impact. And I think that's a matchup tomorrow night that there's going to be a little bit of a friendly rivalry going on the floor. But it was cool to be back in the locker room today. Kentucky's locker room was right beside Providence's locker room. Bryce Hopkins walks down the hallway, and Lance, B-Hop, he sees him. Sahvir Wheeler comes up. They share a moment. They hug. They laugh. They have a good time. Bryce talking to media members from Kentucky as he walks through and greeting people and assistant coaches and everything else. It was a cool moment to see that friendship is still there. But tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, that friendship is put to the side. And it's Kentucky, it's Providence, it's Bryce Hopkins, it's Jacob Toppin, and the better team will win. And hopefully for Kentucky fans, it's Kentucky.
And while we're sticking with Providence, Ed Cooley just refuses to deny his interest in this Georgetown job. And I don't care what they say. I don't care what the players say, and it's not a distraction. Ed Cooley's saying, I don't think it's a distraction. I don't care what you say. When he has continued to go up to that podium and is asked point blank, are you in active discussions with Georgetown? And he continues to say, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking it, but my focus is on Kentucky versus Providence. And like, stop it. Like, he continues to not deny the fact that he is in deep discussions with Georgetown and their coaching job. There's no way that's not a distraction right now. And you know, now 24 hours away from tip-off, biggest game of the season for both teams. And you know that your head coach, you know, while they're sitting there in their hotel rooms at night, do they know that a room over, Ed Cooley's not on the phone with, you know, the Georgetown officials saying, hey, once we get past this tournament, however that unfolds, I'll accept the job tomorrow? Like, the mindset's not where it needs to be right now. And I don't think he did himself any favors by just completely dismissing I'm not going to address that right now. I'm focused on my guys and my locker room only. I mean, I don't know what else he's going to say, but he just continues to not even address it at all, and I think it's a problem.
I do too, and that's where I was coming from, the vibe in the locker room. Now, this obviously what we said last year about the shoot-around in St. Peter's, it certainly backfired on both of us.
Me, and I take that one right there on the chin.
And I picked Kentucky to win by 40, so I mean, I'm right there with you. I believed you.
Name your score game.
So I did name my score, but today, just the vibe in those locker rooms, whether it was the Providence locker room, the Kentucky locker room, I walked in and I told a reporter, I said, middle of the Providence locker room, I said, I don't feel like this team's beating Kentucky tomorrow night. I just feel like that Kentucky is the team that's more loose, the team that's more locked in. I don't know if that comes from John Calipari taking the pressure off these guys. I don't know if it comes from Oscar Tshiebwe wanting to live up to winning games and winning a national championship and making a run this tournament, or just the fact that Kentucky feels like now's the time to put it all together and play their best basketball. Providence has limped into this tournament. Kentucky was playing its best basketball with 2 losses to Vanderbilt. So throw those out the window. Nothing matters now until 7 o'clock tomorrow night. And what Kentucky does, what Providence does, I'm just giving you the vibe in both those locker rooms today. There were smiles in Providence's locker room, but I feel like Kentucky was having fun, but they were also locked in and dialed into the mission at hand here in Greensboro this weekend.
Anything from the shoot-around that stood out to you on Kentucky's side? I mean, it was super loose. They just did full-court layups. There weren't many fans here yet. I think that they're going to trickle in quite heavily tomorrow afternoon and into the evening. So not a whole lot of just pure basketball. I think more so just who was available and who was participating, having Sahvir, CJ, and Kaysen out there and at full strength from what we could see. But anything else I noticed or caught your attention?
I just thought that the biggest takeaway is that everyone was out there and in a practice jersey. I think that's the thing. At this time of year, given Kentucky's history when it comes to injuries, you date back to the last time they won an NCAA tournament game, P.J. Washington did not play the opening weekend of the tournament.
Yep.
And then you had the Jared Vanderbilt situation the year before, didn't play in the tournament. And then obviously last year, Ty Washington, Sahvir Wheeler, everybody kind of limping into Kellen Grady. It looks like Kentucky is the healthiest it's been in a long time. Does that mean that every single player is 100%? Who's 100% this time of the year in college basketball? There's something hurting on every single one of these players. They're getting treatment around the clock, especially this time of the season. But Kentucky appears to be healthy. It appears to be able, if Cal wants to look at some lineups, I just hope tomorrow night we see lineups that make sense. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see any of the weird lineups that kind of maybe he feels forced to use. If you have these guys and you have Sahvir and you need it because of foul trouble late, go to the lineup and put a point guard on the floor that can kind of push the pace and push the tempo and get Kentucky doing what it wants to do offensively and defensively. Kentucky has to lock in on the defensive end. I think that's the thing to watch. But the offensive efficiency that Providence has, the offensive efficiency that Kentucky has, I still feel like this is a team, and I said this on Monday's show, I was talking about going zone 8 or 10 trips. I wasn't talking about against Vandy. I was talking about against Providence. I just feel like this is a team that Kentucky could zone a couple of times, maybe change the pace of the game, cut back on some of that dribble penetration that's giving Kentucky problems this season, even if it's just for 8 to 10 trips, just to mix it in out of a side-out situation or out of a dead ball, out of a timeout, something just to mix it up.
Well, as we said, this isn't going to be our official pregame show. We'll dive more into all of this. We just want to make sure we hit all of the big topics and kind of like an extended rapid reaction of sorts as we leave this beautiful Greensboro Coliseum. Great time. And
it's early. This is day one, but I can tell you I've covered quite a few NCAA tournament games. This may be my favorite venue. It's a really nice arena to shoot the ball. Like everybody, it looks like a great arena to shoot the ball in. There's not a bad seat in the house. We were told about an hour ago that as of 2 days ago, there's about 12,000 tickets sold. It seats about 20,000 people, I believe. So I would expect a lot of Kentucky fans here. I would expect that probably to climb maybe 14, 15, 16,000 people, and it should be a good session tomorrow with some good games, and Kentucky there at 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Before we get out of here, one final message from our friends at myperfectfranchise.net. Andy Ludicky, a franchise consulting company that helps others find franchises that fit their needs, skill sets, investment requirements, and time commitment constraints. Andy is a big college sports fan, husband and father of 3 children. You might have seen Andy's name on KSR before as he sponsors some of KSR's recruiting coverage. He's super nice, great to chat with, and we are very excited to continue our partnership, especially during postseason run. Hopefully it continues a little bit beyond just this weekend. We desperately need that. He's an experienced entrepreneur and has been helping others go through the same process that changed his life 10 plus years ago. If you're wanting to find a way out of corporate America or a way to diversify, please reach out to Andy, as he's got a ton of knowledge in this world, and best of all, his services are 100% free to you. As always, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net. Jack Pilgrim here with Sean Smith. Where can fans find your work?
You can find my work at gobigbluecountry.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at gbbcountry.
Find me on Twitter as well, at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email, jpilgrim at KentuckySportsRadio.com. With that, we'll be back tomorrow for the Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.
You guys want to just pose for a second? Grab a still frame, whatever you all want to do.
Ooh.
Yes. Oh.
Right, ready?